Good evening, and we welcome you to week program coming to you from Trinity United Church, Legon, on the premises of the Trinity Theological Seminary here in Legon. According to a research which has been published on insider.com, in the US, based on a research that was carried out somewhere in 2019, children between the ages of 8 and 12 spend about 4.6 hours just on screens. When it comes to teenagers, about 9 hours is spent just on screens. And when it comes to adults, in excess of 10.5 hours spent daily just on screens. And this stats is something which is pretty pervasive in equally, identifiable countries as well. You may be wondering, why are we talking about these stats? Today, the conversation that we are having is on tech addiction. So let's talk tech addiction. That is our conversation today. And I'm going to be your host, Benjamin Ofeado. And to join me to have this conversation, I have to my immediate left, Cecil Akwe,
Yes.
who is a tech enthusiast and also a tech professional. Cecil, we welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us this evening is Dr. Lily Pobi, who is a clinical psychologist. She was with us last week. Today we are fortunate to have her again. Lily, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ben.
So we are live on both Facebook and YouTube pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and on both platforms, the handle is Trinity United Church Legon. We want to go straight into the conversation, and I would want to start with Cecil. Let's do some basics. When we say technology, pretty much, what are we talking about?
When we say technology, we are simply talking about the application of science to the way we do things. We could do that by employing the use of certain tools to do our work and make sure that the output is efficient.
So that's pretty much
That's
what
pretty
tech
much
is.
what tech is.
So the employment or deployment of certain scientific tools to make our regular daily activities easier.
Yes.
Lily, and within your practice, when we talk about tech addiction, let's now talk about addiction. He's spoken about technology.
Right.
When does something become an addiction?
Okay. Generally, when we are talking about addiction, we mean when something becomes, you become so dependent on something. You have obsessive thoughts about using or being with something, and such that you can't function if you don't get it. So the popular ones that we are used to hearing are, alcohol addiction or other kinds of substances or drugs that we hear about. You're dependent on it. You obsess about getting your next fix or your next hit, and you are compelled. Your behavior is compulsive in order to give you that fix, and you cannot function or do the things you need to do daily properly because of that until you get that thing.
So now, marrying the two,
Yeah.
tech and addiction, and coming back to you, Lily. When we say someone is tech addicted,
Yeah.
what do we mean?
So in that sense, when we are talking about tech addiction, we mean when you are so attached, obsessively attached to your smartphones, your mobile devices, your digital spaces, such that you constantly need to be engaged with them. You're not able to put them away, and you're not able to function normally until you've had that thing, either the phone, the internet space, or whatever, until you've used it. So you're constantly using it. That obsessive thinking, that compulsive behavior to use it is what we mean by an addiction, a tech addiction.
Okay. Listening to Lily, it sounds quite grim and negative. I mean, even looking at technology
Yes.
in general. But I wouldn't think that technology in itself will be that negative. In terms of our daily lives and even our Christian lives,
True.
I would want to believe that there are some positives to technology. Could you just shed some light in that?
Oh, yes. The employment of technology cuts across a lot of things that we do. I mean, in our Christian life, someone might miss church and have a recap on YouTube and watch that later. You can even decide to watch it live. I mean, it makes things convenient for us. And in other works of life, let's say you wake up and then the first thing you do is you touch your phone. Yeah, now your phone is your alarm clock. It is your touchlight. It is your, what do you even call it? Calculator. I mean, it becomes everything for you. So, I mean, it makes your life simpler. Every day, a few minutes without your phone will make you feel some way. But, I mean, it gets the job done. Without your phone, you'd have to buy a calculator. Without your phone, you have to buy a torchlight. But I mean, once you have that, you'll be able to. So I mean, the employment of the technology helps make some part of your life simpler. Yes.
And talking about simplicity, you know, we hear about smartphones.
Yes.
Now we have smart TVs. Now we have actually smart homes.
Yes.
Where people are using technology to do pretty much. Just talk us a bit about, for instance, how technology makes our lives in our homes, even workspaces, a lot more easy, smart in the sense of it.
Okay. So in my case, when you come to my home, I have smart lamps, I have a smart TV, I have a remote that controls all the TVs and all the gadgets in my house that use a remote control.
A single control point.
It's just a small device. And when you put all that and you have, let's say, Google or Siri, you can just be in bed and then you say, hey, Google, turn off the light, and the light will go off. You wouldn't even need to get up from bed. You want to see what's happening on your porch. You heard some sound. You say, hey, Google, what's happening on the porch? It will bring up the security camera on the porch, and you see what's going on there. So when it comes to the home, there are a lot of applications in which you can use the smart home devices. And that technology is cutting edge, and it makes things, I mean, enjoyable. It makes you feel like a king.
Lily, and connecting that with our specific circumstance right now, with COVID hitting, lockdowns, families spending a lot more time at home, and now with the easing of some of the restrictions, parents being out but their children at home, how has, for instance, technology enabled better engagement between parents who are not at home with their children at home?
Yes, definitely. It's been very useful, you know. Some parents who couldn't be in the lockdown or when schools were closed and their kids were at home and they were in, at least the kids could continue to be engaged. You know, the schools that were able to do Zoom lessons or whatever other platform they were using, it kept the children engaged. You're able to check on your kids. Their nanny comes and things at home that you can just log in to see how your kids are doing. So it's absolutely been beneficial. These devices or this technology is not meant to be harmful. It's very useful, because you would imagine if, let's say, there's somebody who has a disability, if they can open their door before their wheelchair gets there, it's amazing. It's very helpful. It helps you to stay connected with people. During COVID, many people were feeling isolated, but we had technology to help us stay connected with each other. So definitely there are benefits. There are definitely things that make it worthwhile to have some technology. Yeah.
But much as there are benefits to technology, one would assume or would also be able to say that there are certain negatives to it. So now let's look at the addiction side of it. And you had indicated earlier that it becomes an addiction when one becomes so hooked onto it that it results in a certain compulsive behavior towards this particular or these particular kinds of devices. And it even influences how they react normally, even in life.
Yes.
Talking about the addiction, let's look at the root cause of some of these addictions.
Okay.
From your study, from your various engagements and the kind of support that you have provided to the various patients you've had to deal with, what have you diagnosed as some of the root causes of these kinds of addictions?
Okay. Just like any other addiction, it starts off because it's pleasurable. That high that you get when you you take in a lot of alcohol, or you smoke some weed, or whatever it is, it makes you feel good, makes you feel mellow, makes you feel calm. You feel some kind of pleasure, right? Certain neurochemicals in the brain are released, dopamine and serotonin and endorphins and so on. So we feel good about ourselves. Nobody wants to feel bad. Nobody wants to feel moody all the time or
Everybody
crappy.
wants to be cool.
Exactly. You know, so having had that experience, and coupling it with the fact that life is so much simpler when you have this connection to different devices and so on, means that we are looking to do it again, okay, and then again and again. It gets to a point where we will become dependent on it. And then when there's a level of dependence, it means our tolerance for it changes, such that when you used to need only a few minutes with some device, or just one device to feel okay, suddenly there are 3 other things that you feel like you must have, you know, or you're spending just an hour online, on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever, and you felt that pleasant feeling, but after a while, that 1 hour is no longer enough. After an hour, you still want more, you know. So it's the reinforcement, and when we would say reinforcement, I mean the pleasant feeling is strengthened, because when you do it again, you get more of that pleasant feeling, and then it goes on and then builds up until you get to a point where you have to do a whole lot of it to even feel some pleasure. And when you don't do it, you feel out of sorts. Then you're hooked on it. Then you're addicted to it. You know, so we want that pleasure, and that's one of the root things. As people, that's how we are made. We want something pleasurable. We want something that feels good, tastes good, looks good, whatever. We want praise. We want people to look at us and admire us. That's human nature. So we keep doing it. We keep doing it, and very soon it needs to be more and more and more for us to feel that good way. And then we get hooked onto it.
You hear Lily talk about the fact that you get one device, at the next instance you are considering, oh, this one could augment the use of this to give better utility. And the tech companies are not stopping in their provision of what they think you would need.
Yes.
So I think it was just 2 days ago, or a day before then, Apple has released
The iPhone 13.
an iPhone 13.
Yes.
Not too long ago, there was iPhone 12
Yes.
with the Pro and Pro Max
Yeah.
versions of it. Now there's iPhone 13. And I won't be surprised that very soon they'll be releasing a new type of AirPods which goes with the iPhone 13 and all of those other things. How are the tech companies contributing to this tech addiction that today we are talking about?
Okay, so the way let's say the iPhone simplifies your life, you might want to add, let's say, AirPods, or maybe a smart charger, or some of the accessories that are available for you to get the full experience. You know, some of the tech companies, when they are advertising their products, they make it feel like when you get our iPhone, I mean, it's awesome. You can do a lot of things. You can do A, B, C with it, and it will make you feel awesome. But getting the full, let's say, the full suite of what they have to offer, the enjoyment is going to be higher than what you are already getting. So I think the tech companies make these things available. Well, they don't do it out of wanting to cause harm, but I mean, they are marketing their products. they are just marketing their products. So they are marketing their products, and that is how they go about it. I mean, whatever happens after that, that would have to be looked at later. But I mean, it's in the marketing that some of these things happen.
But there are clearly unintended consequences.
Yes.
So let's talk about social media, for instance.
Yes.
You realize that certain apps, and now the latest craze is TikTok.
Yes.
Where people get onto TikTok and they can watch all kinds of videos, short ones, nicely curated, and now everybody has the opportunity to be a content creator wherever
Yes.
they are. And they use all kinds of technology, artificial intelligence,
Machine learning.
and all of that, to gauge a sense of what people want and keep on
yes.
providing them with that. Would you say that this is not actually intended to increase screen time? And you listen to the statistics I gave in the introduction. People are getting a lot more hooked on.
They are using, there's something they call cookies. So when you are browsing online and you go to a website, now the website records you coming there as a user. So, okay, so Kofi has come to my website. He clicked on, he wants to buy some items I have to offer. He clicked on maybe a camera, phone, and some other things. Now, the next time Kofi comes, I, the web developer or whoever created the website, I should be able to say, okay, this is what Kofi clicked on the last time he was here. I should be able to predict what he would want to use next. So with the use of the cookies, he's able to track Kofi's clicks, his web history, things that he does when he comes to the site, and use that as a model to create something that he can relate to when he comes. So you see that you'll be browsing and some adverts will be on the website. Maybe you bought a camera the other time. There's a new one that has come out with more features, and they are doing an advert of it on the side. You know very well that you didn't ask for that, but I mean, it's interesting and it has caught your attention. So you would want to click on it and find out what more you can get. So those are some of the things that happen. Those are some of the things they use, like cookies and advertisements and all that, to get your attention.
So listening to both of you, what I hear is a certain unending desire to be more satisfied.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what creates the crave or the desire to want to spend a lot more time on with technology. If you're just joining in, the conversation is let's talk about tech addiction. And we've spent some time to understand the basics of tech addiction, what technology is and what constitutes its addiction. And we've tried to delve into what brings one to a position of tech addiction. We now want to spend some time looking at the kind of impact that tech addiction can have on a person, the various facets of that person's life. And this time, I'd want to start with you, Lily. He ended off with advertisements where people would want to buy maybe an upgraded version of something they had acquired earlier. How does something like tech addiction influence one's financial or economic sustainability?
Right. So when you're addicted to something, obviously you always want to have it or do it, right? Whatever it is that you're addicted to. So even when it doesn't make smart sense for you to spend money on that that event, that activity, you'll find yourself wanting to do it because of that craving that comes about. So let me give an example. Some people are addicted to betting, to sports betting. And these days it's available on your phone, right? Everywhere you go. It used to be that...
It's bet on the go.
Yes. You used to be that you have to go to some lotto kiosk. And when people see you, some people hide and all of that. Those kinds of things were in some ways a bit protective. But now, I mean, when I see you holding your phone, I wouldn't know what you're doing. And people are spending so much money to bet on these platforms because it's easily available and it's easily accessible. Another thing is something like online shopping, just generally shopping. And as Cecil said, the ads that start to pop up on your regular browser, even when you're not shopping, are related to the things you may have shopped for. And suddenly you think, oh, that one actually also looks good. Maybe I should get it. And you start spending money that you shouldn't, or sometimes don't even have. If you have like credit cards or whatever, or loans that you need to be paying off, and you're spending the money on shopping or betting and things like that. So economically and financially, addictions are expensive because most people do not have the ability to feed it continuously. You'll find that we hear of a lot of people who have substance use problems. always looking for a way to make money. So you find parents are complaining that he's stealing my money, he's selling gadgets, he's doing this, he's doing that, because he has to feed the addiction. He or she, let me say, has to feed the addiction. And it's the same with tech addiction. So you're constantly looking for a way to make sure that you can feed that need.
It will interest you to know, I was speaking with one of my bosses, and he indicated that his house help, who is a lady, spent about 5,000 cedis betting
Wow.
in a particular
That's
week.
a lot.
Wow.
And I'm wondering, how much does she get to be paid to be able to spend 5,000 cedis on betting in a week?
Yeah.
And
Some people do get those returns, and that's what feeds it. So you say, let me keep trying. That's what gambling is. Gambling is also an addiction, right? Not just the sports betting, but the actual gambling that people do in casinos and so on. That's what feeds it, because every once in a while you win something.
but
so
now
you
it's
keep
enabled,
thinking.
Now it's enabled by tech.
Exactly. Exactly. So
you don't have to be hiding to go do it.
yes.
In the comfort of your bed.
Exactly. And you win something small. Maybe this week you win 100. Next week you lose 200. The following time you're winning 5,000. And you'll be thinking, okay, let me keep going. What if the more I put in, the more I get back? So the amounts you actually start betting increase.
So would you want to add to this impact on one's economic or financial life?
Yes, so with the betting, I think a betting company would their main goal would be to make money. And all betting companies, be it Lotto or whatever, they make all those who patronize their services feel like you are the next winner. So you do it the first time, you get some money out of it, then you go like, wow. If I'm able to win this money, then I mean, I'll be rich. I'll be able to do whatever. I'll be able to feed my things that I need money for. This is cool chop, as they'll say. I mean, they'll be able to get a lot of things done by getting this money. So they'll be pumping money into it, always feeling like, oh, they'll be a winner. And this is what brings some of the problems.
So let's segue this financial or economic burden that tech addiction brings into the issue of crime. So you indicate, for instance, that certain persons may complain, parents may complain that, oh, he or she has taken this money of mine. How does tech addiction increase or, let's say, engender criminal activity? Okay. Or let's say vices in general?
Yeah. It is not so much the tech that is engendering those kinds of criminal activities. And that's not to say that anybody or everybody who is addicted to their devices would be criminal. That's not the point. But if the person is desperate enough to feed that craving or that addiction and they cannot see a way out, they will find ways and means, as we like to say, to feed it, right? That addiction needs to be fed. It needs to be fulfilled or satisfied. So some people, let's look at some of the examples online. People have certain personas online. Mm-hmm. It means you have to look a certain way. The background of where you are presenting needs to look a certain way. Now, if you've created a certain persona where you dress a particular way and those clothes run out, where you're not constantly getting those new ones, then they start hopping around looking for ways in which to get the new outfits or the new clothing or whatever it is that they've used to make their presence online felt, right? So it is not necessarily that they would go and steal, but sometimes it would mean they would do things that under normal circumstances they may not have done. If I need to work myself to the bone for a week because I'll get a lump sum of $20,000 or whatever that I can use to feed that addiction, sometimes people may do it. So it's not necessarily that it will be criminal activities, but it's stuff that is unrealistic and unhealthy and sometimes criminal.
Still with that, maybe moving from criminality into vices general. So I cited TikTok, for instance,
Yes.
where people are constantly creating content, video content, and putting themselves out there. And what makes them feel satisfied are the clicks,
The
to
likes,
like,
yes.
the comments, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And as you were saying, you need to be able to dress a particular way.
And look the role
and
that you
exactly,
are
to
portraying.
play it.
Yes.
And people may not be able to have the finance to support that
To
kind of
support
thing.
that, yes.
I'm going to ask a very controversial question. So there is what a lot of people have known as someone being someone's sugar daddy.
Okay.
That's an elderly person being a benefactor to a younger lady. But now it's pretty much unisex. And so now we are getting into the realms of glucose guardians. Right? Do we think that, is it the case that some of these situations result from some of these addictions and a certain crave or strong desire to be relevant online constantly?
Yes. You see, in their real life, you find out that they might not be what they portray online. And if they are portraying something online and they are getting the hits and all the praises and it's getting to their head, they would want to find a way to, finance that kind of living. And that is when, I always think that when it comes to some of these vices, every vice that comes out comes from a form of a hunger. People don't just get up and go and steal something. There's something that is causing some hunger and they feel the need to satisfy that hunger. And that is where that comes in.
Lily, would you want to wade in with that?
Yes, satisfying that hunger is one aspect, but also this idea of it continuously being reinforced. If it wasn't working, they'll stop, right? So our presence or the things that we do encourage these kinds of things, right? If somebody puts up a video and there are only 2 likes versus the same person putting up another video and they have 2,000 likes, they're more likely to put up the kind of video that had more likes, right? If that is what they're craving or what is useful for them. And as human beings, as I said earlier, we want to be admired. We want to fit in. We want to be seen as different and special. So it's an innate thing. It's something that is within us, but it needs to be modeled and it needs to be controlled so that it is not harmful.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be going for a commercial break in a bit. A break, not necessarily commercial. We're going for a break in a bit. But let me pick your mind on this. How does this kind of addiction, tech addiction, affect family life, one's social life, how the person is situated within his community or her community generally?
Yeah.
Because I have been to places where we are together seated and pretty much everybody is on a device.
Exactly.
Generally, how does this kind of addiction impact people's social, family lives?
Yeah. Okay. And yes, you're absolutely right with the example that you gave, right? So many times now, if you just take a moment to look out around when you are somewhere, everybody has their head down, right? Everybody is scrolling through their phone or talking on the phone or it's typing away at something. Our interpersonal relations are different now. It's very common these days for you to be having a conversation with someone and the person just completely switches off when the phone buzzes, right? The phone clicks and just everything about you who is in front of them is cut off because they are shifting the focus to the phone. And there's for some people a certain level of anxiety when the information that they need is not coming immediately. We are creating a culture with young children these days of instant gratification. When they click something, they expect it to happen immediately. And so we're hearing of teachers and so on complaining. Children are not able to sit in class as long as they used to be able to sit. Reading a story in a book for comprehension or something like that is boring to them because it's taking forever. And so you constantly need to keep them engaged. it's okay to do that, to switch up your style, because we can get stagnant in our way of teaching and so on. That's different. But when kids expect instant gratification all the time, then it affects the kind of adults that they become. And it is those kinds of faulty adults that then also have problems in how they are relating with people, how they are doing things around their home. It affects our relationships as well, you know? Some people are addicted to cyber sex. They are watching pornography online and having expectations of what actual intimate relations will be like. So they can't connect with the other person in person as well as they should, you know. So all of these things, if we take it to the extreme, they affect all spheres of our lives.
Wow, that sounds scary. You have the last word on this before the break.
Yes, so in addition to what she said, having those things affect your life makes things way difficult. So imagine you're at a table and all the kids are looking in the phone. The lights coming from the phone, maybe it's in the night, you are having dinner, the kids are looking on the phone. The light coming from the phone with prolonged watching can affect their eyes. Their social lives are going to be affected. Their posture and how they sit, because they are always they don't even want to look at anybody's face. It's going to affect the unity of the family, and there are a lot of little things that you might not think might be a problem, but in the long term, yes, they can be.
You're still here on Let's Talk About, and today we are talking about tech addiction. We've spent some time looking at what it is, what causes it, and the effect it can have on one's person and the person's connection with other people. We'd want to go for a quick break. When we're back, we'll be looking at other forms of effects that this has on us, and then we'll try to look for some solutions. How do we deal with the phenomenon of tech addiction? We go for a quick musical break. When we're back, we continue the conversation. So we welcome you back to the conversation, and today we are talking about tech addiction. And for those of you who have been with us from the beginning, we've looked at the basics of it, we've looked at what causes it, and some of the effects that it has on one's person and one's daily lives. We have some of your questions and comments coming from Facebook as well as YouTube. We'll be going into them in a bit. But also, you can keep the questions and comments coming, and you can also send them via WhatsApp on 0501 579 996. That's 0501 579 996. And I would want to take a look at some of the comments that have come through so far. We've received this from Ruth Redu, and she says, yes, there are some positives in technology. We are experiencing it now. Now I can travel without missing church. That's coming from Auntie Ruth. Vida Kwapong Ekufu says, what would you say to the thought or opinion that some addiction is subtle, especially tech addiction? Some people do not accept that they are addicted when in fact they are. I'd want to throw that to you, Lily.
Yes, definitely. The thing with addiction is that the subtle one, you may be seeing it in the person's lives, the way things have changed, but the person may not accept it or may not see the need for change because they're getting the kind of gratification that they may want or they may desire. For instance, somebody who makes a living through the TikTok videos that they make will constantly want to be sure that everything is on point over there and constantly engaging with it and so on. And you might think that the person is spending too much time online or on TikTok, but for her, that's where she makes her money, or he or she makes their money. So yes, it may be subtle also in the sense that it creeps up on you. You never really realize when you're becoming addicted to some of these things. But then suddenly it hits you that, wow, I've spent the last 4 hours looking at TikTok videos. I didn't realize that this was what was happening. Then you cast your mind back and realize, yeah, almost every day, this big chunk of my time is being spent on the addiction. For some people too, they don't realize that as soon as they open their eyes, they need to reach for the phone and see any messages, any emails, any videos that I'm told, tweets that they said you've missed and you should look at, and things like that, you know. So you may not realize it because you're going through your normal day, but when you take some time to assess, then you start to realize that I'm spending a lot of time, spending a lot of money buying data for these apps and things like that.
Do tech addicts ever accept that they are addicted?
Some of them do, some of them don't. Those who don't, you see, the digital devices that we use lately. They have some form of screen management built into them. And the use of data and all that, there are reports that the phone generates that after this month, you've used this amount of data. And after today, you've been on Facebook for 3 hours, Twitter for 2, let's say some other websites for 3. You know, those reports that you get from your mobile devices might give you the realization that, hey, am I not becoming a tech addict? Because it's like the stats that are online saying that, like how you began saying that the elderly people spend this amount of time. I'm almost reaching that target. Wouldn't that go to say that I am becoming an addict? So these are some of the things that you find informing your decision or your thought to say whether you are actually a serious addict or a mild one.
A mild one,
Yes.
you say. Steve Doche sends this one. He says, that is the problem. Because in this case, one may not take any steps to cure the addiction until one becomes helpless. Annie Atubra says, thank you for this discussion. Tech addiction has brought a lot of imbalance in the lives of individuals, and this has affected various forms of relationships and work output. Let's talk about relationships and then work output as well. I think you had earlier on mentioned it, but what is the gravity of impact when it comes to tech addiction on relationships, be they romantic relationships or even family relationships?
Okay. You see, when we are on social media, for instance, there's a certain level of anonymity that is present. So you'll find that the way people speak to or speak about others or issues that are going on is sometimes more unpleasant than they normally would if they were saying it to your face.
People are more savage, as
They are
they call
very
it.
much more
Yeah.
savage, right? The things that they normally would not say to you, or at least they won't say in that way, they can blast it out on you on social media. It's affecting our interpersonal relationships, okay? So the way we talk to each other, the way we relate to each other is colored by what happens online sometimes. And beyond how we're behaving online itself, if we are together with your partner, your children, or so, and then you're not talking to each other, but you're always on the phone. Somebody is busy scrolling through videos, another person is making video content, another is just scrolling through the feed on their timeline and so on. There's no connection much anymore. You are not talking to each other. The communication is such a problem these days, and we're seeing it a lot in the issues that people bring in terms of relationship problems. Communication is such a big barrier these days. People are not talking to each other. They don't even know how to approach some of these things with their significant others, you know? If you've spent your full day at work and you have an hour after supper with your children, but you are all spending that online, then you're not connecting with your children. You don't know what's going on with them beyond what they are doing online, if you are even able to see what they're doing online, because some of the kids are able to mask what they're doing. So it's affecting how we relate, it's affecting how we build connections, it's affecting our communication styles. We'll find that in work as well. People don't know how to say things in person or to connect with people in person in the same way as it used to be, because they're constantly thinking of the technology space, or they're using that space, or sometimes it's overly formal, right? If you are used to writing very formal emails at work, then you meet somebody and say, hello, I hope this finds you well. It's stifling the way in which we connect with each other, you know. So it has those kinds of effects on our relationships.
Let's talk about marriages and romantic relationships, for instance, and I'm staying with you. Today I was having a conversation on one of my group chats, and one lawyer friend of mine who was saying, oh, he was at a district court, and where he is at present, there are about 3 matrimonial causes that are before the court, divorce proceedings. And also some stats were given where an engagement with a judge who has been on the bench for less than 3 years has sat over in excess of 500 divorce cases.
Wow.
How does some of these things, tech addiction, because you spoke about communication, how does that impact those kinds of relationships and their breaks thereof?
Yeah. If you're spending a lot of time with your digital devices, that's time you're not spending with your spouse or your partner. And as I said, the ways in which people comment or communicate online, there's a certain tone to it, right? Now, if you have a situation where there's already suspicion or mistrust, and so let's say you hear stories of people say, I took my husband's phone or I took my wife's phone and there were all these chats with someone else. Maybe it was innocent. I know there are instances where it's not, but the tone of the message can send a wrong signal, or it can give a wrong kind of impression. On the other hand, we are also then, for some people, they are spending all of that time on social media looking at lovely looking women dressed in certain ways, looking at guys, shirtless guys or whatever.
Suave gentlemen.
Right. Right? Or you're spending the time looking at videos that are titillating in some way and so on. Those expectations of what it means to be a man or it means to be a woman are misconceived, or what's the word? Yes, misconceived on social media. Nobody's life is that perfect, but nobody puts the unpleasant things on social media. So when you look at Mr. and Mrs. A who always seem like, oh, they're going on holiday here, they're going on flying to this place the next day, they are doing things together, they've just bought a new house, a new car, a new dog, right? Looks good over there. And then you start to look at yourself and think, why are you not doing this with me?
So it
Why are
creates
you doing
unrealistic
that?
expectations.
The expectations are completely unrealistic, you know. So it makes us disconnected from reality, from what is real. We no longer see life the way it is with the ups and the downs. It always needs to be up.
How does this impact work and studies, especially for the students and workers? Tech addiction.
Okay, so let's say you have an addiction to gaming, and you have an essay to turn in. Let's say you have a deadline, you have an essay to turn in. Now you are working on your essay and you go on your desktop and you see an icon of one of your favorite games and you are tempted to play it. It's going to affect the time that you have to do that work. And once that time is affected, the time you have to do the actual work has been affected. The time you have to sleep, to have enough sleep for you to be able to finish that work will be affected. That should be on the personal side. When it comes to the work side too, you are working and your phone sends a notification. Maybe you are playing Candy Crush or some other game and they send you a notification that, oh, your lives are full now. Would you want to continue playing the game? And it has become a game that you are addicted to. You are working and it's not even lunchtime and that notification has caught your attention. And you decide, oh, let me just play this game a little. Now you're playing the game, you're getting more lives. You keep playing. You lose focus on what you are supposed to do at work. It's different if you are doing it on lunchtime, but when you are doing it during the working hours, you lose focus, and that is going to affect your work life. It might even end up making you being terminated just because you are playing a game. There are certain workplaces that have policies against some of these things. They have bring your own device policies, and they have the kind of things that you're supposed to do. There are policies against things like that, and you don't take your personal things to work. So things like that, you're not supposed to engage in them. They might affect your work.
Yeah. Let's look at some of the other comments that are coming through. So from Bekwe Edifo, he says, let's also focus on the medium of connectivity, network, data consumption, which is fundamental. Not only users and digital market space as beneficiaries or losers in terms of addiction. And so there's a lot of spend on data and all of that when it comes to this. Ellen Soa says, I have decided I'll go to Facebook just once a week. Social media like TikTok, YouTube are just too addictive. And now because of smartness, you can be watching one thing on your TV, say YouTube on your TV, and you need to move to another room. You can just cast it onto your phone and then continue. Like the whole time, you are stuck. Vida Kwapoe Kufu asks, do you think COVID lockdown and restrictions on physical interaction could have contributed to more people being stuck to tech and perhaps leading to some form of addiction? And Ifo Abrahams comes in with a response to that. It says, most definitely, being locked down meant that many activities which were done in person had to be moved online.
Exactly.
While that has many benefits, we have to recognize the downsides too and make every effort to avoid or minimize them. Thanks to the church for an opportunity to discuss this and get tips on how to get the most out of our technology while reducing the negative effects. Let me read a few more comments. Kweku Obeng Nyaku Dochi asks or says, tech has reduced the workload on nursing mothers. Mothers hand over their devices to their babies to prevent them from either causing trouble or crying. And I want to ask a question on this. Is this not just creating a problem which we are not yet realizing?
Yes.
Because now children are going to be more connected to the devices as opposed to their parents.
Yeah. I don't know whether we can say that it is causing a problem. Remember that we are saying that the technology on its own is not bad. It's how we use it. Now, there may be some concerns about starting them off so early. I hesitate to say just the use of the device. It can be beneficial. Children are learning to speak much earlier than usual. We are seeing that there's much more better hand-eye coordination and things like that. So there are some benefits. It's how we use it and how much we use it that makes it problematic.
Okay.
You know?
And now people are actually getting better at cooking. Thanks to the various DIY, DIY videos,
Yes.
do it yourself and all of that. So,
Exactly.
I know a lot more boys who have tried their hands on some cooking. Ordinarily, they wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm sure
have
COVID
done.
also reinforced that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tech addiction is now chronic with the youth, including myself. And there's a comment coming from Kesh. And he says, I'm glad you've highlighted some of the ways we can minimize it. Bless you. Daniel from East Legon says, using technology is good. It gives simplicity and importance to life in this era. Most of the youth are guilty of its abusive use. We should try to use it to benefit society and the church. But Queen Edifo comes back and says, we may want to target the tech users and the digital market space as beneficiaries or losers of the technology in terms of addiction. Let's also focus on, okay, so we read that comment already. Ellen Soa says, I am waiting for a tech company that will come up with devices with nothing, and you upload only apps you want and need. Young people, take it up. Phones have become too disruptive. And she goes ahead to say, if there is a fast, we need more than ever. It is a phone fast, at least once a month, and move towards once a week. Interesting. Let me now for us to look at solutions. We have just a few minutes to wrap up. The conversation gets very exciting.
Yes.
Dennis Brown asks, what can one do about tech addiction if he or she feels trapped in it? What does he or she do to free himself? Solutions.
Okay. It seems like this is becoming my motto for a lot of things. The first step is always with self-awareness. You've got to recognize that you have a problem or you have a challenge that you're struggling with, and then look at the extent to which it bothers you, or the extent to which it is a problem. When you recognize the things, the areas, the times that you're spending that are problematic, then you can start to look at what to do about it. Now, one of the main things that is suggested or recommended is to make conscious efforts to put the phone away. You do not need to answer every single message as soon as it comes, right? So turning off push notifications, for instance, is such a big step. If you turn off those notifications and your circle of the people, let's say you're working with, or the people who do need to contact you, know that it should be over the phone, an actual call, then you don't need to connect with the phone all the time. Okay. Now, there may be some people whose work is such that they have to, if you manage, let's say, a social media page for an organization, you need to, it means that you need to start to segment the areas that are work-related and the ones that are not work-related, so that you ignore consciously those ones. It has to be an effort that you put in. If you put in specific times, you start to make that a habit that I'm going to time myself. I'd only want to spend 30 minutes on Facebook every day. Set a timer, and when it rings, stop it.
Okay.
Stop what you're doing, you know? So make those kinds of conscious efforts or conscious behaviors, and then it can start to make a difference.
I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I muted all my WhatsApp notifications. So initially, people were having challenges. I sent you a message. Oh, if it's urgent, send me an SMS or give me a call.
Yeah.
Because WhatsApp will be very disruptive.
Exactly.
So all my WhatsApp notifications muted. So just in case you tried reaching me via WhatsApp and didn't get me, now you know why.
And they adjust, don't they? People adjust.
Yeah, with time. Now let's look, still talking solutions. How do we use tech to solve tech addiction? You are the tech enthusiast.
Okay, so on our mobile devices, when it comes to data and the use of data, they have monthly plans. It's part of your data settings. So you go to your network settings, you see data saver. Now when you open data saver, it's going to put a cap on the amount of data you use for a certain period of time. So let's say in a month, you might want to use the 2 gig or 5 gig, depending on your usage. Now, setting a lower data usage will help curb some of these addictions, because when the data finishes, you yourself also have to make a conscious effort that after that data runs out, you are going to wait a bit longer before you make the effort to buy another set of data. Now, that aside, there's also screen time. It's more of an application built in the operating systems we use. It's on iOS, it's on Android. Now, what screen time does is it allows you to set an active time that you use your device. And when you use your device too, it allows you to set a limit as to the apps that you use. So when it comes to social media apps, it groups all of them in one. Work and productivity apps, it groups that too. And then all your other apps. So in the setting of your screen time, you can specify that for social media, allow me to do only 1 hour. For work and productivity apps, allow me to do, let's say, 4 hours. Maybe your work depends on it and it's going to make you money. So it's something important for you. So you specify that as well. And then some free time for some other things that you might want to do. So that being said, when you pick up your iPad or your iPhone, you know that you have a set time to do A, B, or C. So you'll be able to plan around it. You know that you just check important notifications. After that, it will just cut off. It's not like it's coming to, it will cut off. It will just stop working.
I see.
It's not even going to tell you that your time is up, so stop doing social media or TikTok. It's a control measure in there.
And that's an app you can download.
Some of them are apps you can download.
Okay.
But most of the time, it's baked into the operating systems we use on our mobile devices. Yes.
All too soon. I mean, our time is fast spent, and the conversation keeps on evolving. Unfortunately, our time is up, and we would want to wrap up. And we would want to thank very greatly Cecil Akwe, who is a tech enthusiast and a tech professional himself, also having joined us today, as she did last week, is Dr. Lily Pobi, who is a clinical psychologist. And the two of them have helped us to delve deep into the issue of tech addiction. The show has been Let's Talk About, and today we've been speaking about tech addiction. Know this, if you're addicted to tech or whatever form of addiction, it actually impacts your Christian life, because the time you ordinarily would have spent with the Lord, you would want to be spending it on your devices or whichever addiction it is. My name is Benjamin Ofeado. I've been your host this evening, and the conversation doesn't end. It continues on our various social media platforms, our WhatsApp groups, in our offices, in our homes. I'm sure this is a good time for parents to have some very serious conversations with their children around the use of technology. And this show has come to you from Trinity United Church, Legon, and it's been live on both our Facebook and YouTube pages. Until we meet same time next week, be careful. Tech can derail you if you get addicted to it, but it's also a very useful tool to even help you with your work, the rest of your life, and even your Christian life. Have a good evening.
This is a song of gratitude, oh God. Who would have thought that I could have come this far? Who would have thought that you could love me this way? Yeah. Every minute of my life and every hour, Father, I'm grateful. Lord, I am grateful. Who would have thought that I could come this far? Who would have thought? Who would have thought that you Every minute, every hour, every moment of my life. Oh, Lord, I am grateful. Say grateful, yeah. Grateful, yeah. Father, oh Father, grateful. I'm so grateful, yes. I thought that you could love me this way. Every minute, every hour, every moment in my life. Father, I'm grateful. Lord, I am grateful. Say, who would have thought? Who would have thought that I could come this far? Who would have thought that you could love me this way? Every day. Every morning, yeah. Father, I'm grateful. Lord, I'm grateful. Grateful. Oh, Lord, I'm grateful. Forever grateful. Say grateful. Oh, yeah. Say, I am so glad. We say, I am so glad that you saved me. Oh, for the gift of salvation. I am so glad that you we are concerned for my life, oh God. For all you have done and for all you do. Lord, I will always sing your praise. Grateful. Lord, Father, forever grateful. With my whole heart I'm grateful. Yeah. I am so glad. Raise it up. I am so glad for the gift of salvation, for your saving grace, and for your concern for my life. Grateful. Oh God, forever grateful. Forever grateful. Every day grateful. I am so glad. Say, declare, we say, I am so glad. I am so glad. For all you've done. If I had 1,000 tongues, I will